If you enjoy dark romance, mafia stories, powerful men with dangerous hearts, and emotional love stories, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and turn on notifications, because this story gets deeper, darker, and more intense with every part. The rain came down hard, the kind that erased the city lights and turned the highway into a mirror of blurred reflections. Ava Carter stood beside her car, soaked to the bone, her phone clenched in her trembling hand. No signal, no passing traffic, just the sound of rain hammering the asphalt and her own heartbeat pounding louder with every second. The engine had died without warning. One moment she was driving home from a late shift, the next she was stranded on the loneliest stretch of road in the city. Her hair clung to her face, mascara streaking down her cheeks, mixing with rainwater she couldn't tell apart from tears. She had no one to call. She wrapped her arms around herself, trying to stay warm, trying not to panic. This side of the city wasn't safe at night. Everyone knew that. The abandoned warehouses, the broken streetlights, the rumors, this was territory people avoided. Headlights appeared in the distance. Ava's breath caught. Relief came first, then fear. The car was expensive, black, low, moving slow, like a predator that had already spotted its prey. It pulled over. The engine purred, smooth and powerful, completely unaffected by the storm. The window slid down, and that's when she saw him. He was sitting in the driver's seat like he owned the night. Dark hair, sharp jawline, eyes cold and unreadable. He wore a tailored black coat, untouched by the rain, as if the weather itself respected him. There was something about his presence, quiet, controlled, dangerous. "Your car's dead," he said calmly. It wasn't a question. Ava swallowed. "Why yes. I think so." He looked her over slowly, not in a way that felt cheap or obvious, but assessing, like he was memorizing details. The torn hem of her coat. The fear she tried to hide. The fact that she was alone. "You shouldn't be out here," he said. "I didn't plan to be," she replied, her voice shaking despite her effort to sound strong. For a moment, he said nothing. The rain filled the silence. Then he opened the door. "Get in," he said. Ava hesitated. Every warning she had ever heard screamed in her head. Stranger. Night. Dangerous area. Dangerous man. "I'll take you home," he added, his tone firm, final. "You're not safe here." Something about the way he said it made her believe him. Not because he was kind, but because he was honest. Honest about the danger. Honest about the control he carried so effortlessly. She got in. The door shut with a heavy thud, sealing her into warmth and leather and the faint scent of expensive cologne. The car moved instantly, smooth as silk, cutting through the rain like it had somewhere important to be. "Thank you," Ava said quietly. He glanced at her. "Name?" "Ava." He nodded once. "I know." Her heart skipped. "You know me." "I know a lot of things," he replied. She looked at him more closely now. The scars on his knuckles. The calm grip on the steering wheel. This was a man who had seen violence and walked through it untouched. "Where do you live?" he asked. She told him the address. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "That's far. I don't mind," she said quickly. "I mean, I'm just grateful." He didn't answer. The silence stretched, heavy but not uncomfortable. Ava stared out the window, watching the city slowly come back to life as they left the dead zone behind. "Why did you stop?" she finally asked. He smiled faintly. "It wasn't warm. Because I wanted to," he said. That answer should have scared her. Instead, it made something shift inside her, something she didn't understand. Yet, they reached a red light. He turned to face her fully now. "You're lucky," he said. "Because you stopped." "No," he said calmly. "Because no one else did." The light turned green. The car moved again. Ava didn't know it yet, but that night, the rain, the broken car, the moment she got into his vehicle, had already changed her life forever. Because the man driving her home wasn't just a stranger. He was the mafia boss who ruled the city from the shadows. And the moment he pulled over, he had decided she was his. Ava didn't realize she was holding her breath until the car slowed in front of her apartment building, the rain finally easing into a quiet drizzle as if the storm itself had said all it needed to say. The building looked small and ordinary beside the sleek black car, like her life before tonight, simple, predictable, untouched by danger. He pulled to the curb and turned off the engine, and the sudden silence felt louder than the rain had been. "We're here," he said calmly. Ava nodded, her fingers tightening around the strap of her bag. "Thank you," Really? I don't even know your name. He looked at her for a long moment, eyes sharp, calculating, as if deciding how much truth she could handle. Not tonight, he said. But you will. That should have unsettled her, yet instead it sparked a strange curiosity. She opened the door, then paused. My car, it'll be handled, he interrupted. Go inside. Lock your door. She hesitated again, then stepped out, the cool air brushing her damp skin. As she walked toward the entrance, she felt his gaze on her back, heavy and unmistakable. Only when she reached the door did she turn around. The car was already gone, disappearing into the city like a ghost. That night, sleep refused to come. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw his face, heard his voice, felt the weight of his presence. He hadn't touched her, hadn't threatened her, yet he lingered in her thoughts like a mark she couldn't erase. The next morning, her phone buzzed with an unknown number. Your car will be delivered by noon. No name, no explanation. Her heart raced. She typed back before she could stop herself. Who is this? 3 dots appeared, then vanished, then appeared again. Someone who keeps his word. By noon, her car was parked perfectly outside her building, washed, repaired, better than it had been in months. On the dashboard lay a single black card. No logo, no address, just a name embossed in silver, Luca Moretti. Ava's stomach dropped. Everyone in the city knew that name. Luca Moretti wasn't just wealthy or powerful, he was dangerous. The man people spoke about in lowered voices. The man whose business dealings were never mentioned in public, yet everyone knew he controlled half the city from the shadows. Mafia boss. Kingpin. Untouchable. Her hands trembled as she stared at the card. That was him. The realization sent a rush of fear through her, followed immediately by confusion. Why would someone like him stop for her? That evening, as she finished her shift at the small art gallery where she worked, 2 men in suits were waiting outside. Miss Carter, one said politely. Mr. Moretti would like to see you. Panic surged. I didn't agree to anything. The other man smiled slightly. You're not in trouble. He doesn't repeat invitations. Against every instinct screaming at her to run, Ava found herself getting into another black car, this one with tinted windows and an interior that smelled like money and power. They drove to the heart of the city, to a building she'd passed 100 times without ever knowing what lay inside. The elevator ride was silent. When the doors opened, Luca was already there, standing by the window, the city lights painting him in golden shadow. You came, he said without turning. I didn't feel like I had a choice, Ava replied honestly. He turned then, his expression unreadable. You always have a choice, he said. You chose curiosity. He gestured for her to sit, pouring her a glass of water himself. The gesture was controlled, deliberate. I don't involve civilians in my life, he continued. I don't make exceptions. Ava met his gaze. Then why me? For the first time, something flickered in his eyes, something almost human. Because you were alone in the rain, he said. And no one else stopped. The room felt smaller, the air heavier. You could have been hurt, he added quietly. That doesn't sit well with me. Ava should have been terrified. Instead, she felt seen in a way she never had before. This doesn't mean anything, she said, trying to ground herself. You helped me. That's it. Luca stepped closer, close enough that she could feel his presence without him touching her. It means everything, he said softly. You just don't know it yet. Her pulse raced. What do you want from me? He studied her face, then stepped back. Nothing, he said. Not yet. He handed her the card again. But this city isn't kind to people like you. From now on, if you need anything, you call me. Why? She whispered. His voice dropped. Because I've already decided to protect you. Ava left his world that night shaken, confused, and undeniably drawn to a man she knew she should stay far away from. She didn't see the men watching her from across the street, nor the orders Luca gave the moment she was gone. Find out everything about her, he told his people. And make sure no one touches her. In the rain, he had seen her helpless. Now, in the light, he knew one thing with absolute certainty. Ava Carter was no longer just a stranger. She was a weakness. And in his world, weaknesses were dangerous, but some were worth everything. Ava tried to return to her normal life, but normal no longer fit the way it used to, like clothes that suddenly felt too tight after a single night changed everything. She went to work, smiled at customers, answered emails, and laughed at the right moments, yet beneath it all was the constant awareness that she was no longer invisible. Every time she stepped outside, she felt watched, not in a threatening way, but in a controlled, deliberate one, as if unseen eyes were quietly making sure she reached her destination safely. When a stranger lingered too long near her building, he disappeared the next day. When a man followed her halfway home from the subway, he never showed up again. Ava told herself it was coincidence, but deep down, she knew better. Luca Moretti's protection wasn't loud or obvious, it was precise, surgical, and impossible to escape. The first time she saw him again was 3 days later, when she exited the gallery after closing and found him leaning against a black car across the street, hands in his coat pockets, looking completely at ease as the city rushed around him. Her heart stumbled. "You can't just show up like this," she said as she approached, trying to sound annoyed instead of shaken. "I can," he replied calmly. "And I did." He opened the passenger door without asking. "Get in." "I didn't say yes." "You didn't say no," he countered, watching her closely. Ava hesitated, then climbed in, hating how quickly her body responded to his presence. The car moved before she could say another word. "You've been busy," she said, attempting to reclaim control. "Fixing my car. Sending men to watch me." Luca's jaw tightened slightly. "You noticed. I'm not stupid." "Good," he said. "I don't like fragile people." The comment should have offended her, yet it sparked something defiant in her. "Then stop treating me like one." He glanced at her, something sharp and approving flashing in his eyes. "Protection isn't weakness," he said. "It's power. And power always comes with a price." That word, price, settled heavy in her chest. "What price?" she asked. The car stopped at a red light, and Luca turned to face her fully. "Time," he said. "Honesty. And trust." She let out a humorless laugh. "Trust. You're a criminal." "I'm honest about what I am," he replied coolly. "Most people lie." The light turned green, and the city blurred past them again. He took her to dinner, not to some hidden underground place like she expected, but to a quiet, upscale restaurant overlooking the river. Everyone there knew who he was, she could tell by the way the staff moved faster, the way conversations softened when he passed. Luca ordered for both of them without asking, and to her surprise, it was exactly what she would have chosen. "You did your homework," she said. "I don't do anything halfway," he replied. Over dinner, he asked her about her life, her childhood, her dreams, the art she loved and the city she wanted to leave someday. He listened in a way few people ever had, not interrupting, not judging, simply absorbing every word. In return, he revealed little, only fragments, that he'd grown up with nothing, that loyalty meant more to him than love, that mistakes in his world were paid for in blood. "Then why let me anywhere near you?" Ava asked quietly. Luca's gaze softened, just slightly. "Because you're not part of my world," he said. "You remind me of who I could have been." The honesty in his voice unsettled her more than any threat could have. When he dropped her off that night, he didn't ask her to stay, didn't touch her, didn't even lean close. "You're safer with me than without me," he said simply. "But you're free to walk away." Ava stood there, watching him drive off, knowing that freedom was an illusion now. Walking away didn't mean forgetting. It meant pretending the pull between them didn't exist. Days passed, and the city began to whisper. Ava heard her name mentioned in places it shouldn't have been, saw unfamiliar faces watching her with curiosity rather than menace. Luca's world had noticed her. And with attention came danger. One night, as she left work late, a man stepped out of the shadows and grabbed her wrist. "Mr. Moretti's new interest," he sneered. "Let's see what makes you so special." Panic surged, but before she could scream, the man was yanked backward, slammed into the wall with brutal force. Luca emerged from the darkness, eyes cold, voice lethal. "I told you," he said to the man, "no one touches what's mine." The word mine echoed in Ava's ears as Luca turned to her, his expression shifting instantly from violence to concern. "Are you hurt?" he asked softly. She shook her head, breathless. That was the moment she understood the truth. Luca Moretti hadn't just decided to protect her. He had claimed her. And in his world, once something was claimed, it was defended at any cost, even if that cost was war.
Ava didn't sleep that night. Not after the way Luca had said the word mine with a certainty that cut deeper than fear and warmer than safety, a single syllable that wrapped around her thoughts and refused to let go. She replayed the moment again and again. The attacker's hand on her wrist, the sudden violence, Luca's face transformed into something ruthless and ancient, then the instant shift when he looked at her, as if the world narrowed to one fragile point he would burn cities to protect. Morning came gray and heavy, and with it came reality. She was standing too close to a line she didn't understand, let alone know how to step back from. Her phone buzzed just after sunrise. "I need to see you," the message read. No greeting. No name. She stared at the screen, heart racing, then typed back before doubt could stop her. "We need to talk." His reply was immediate. "Yes, we do." An hour later, she was in his car again, the city sliding past like a movie she'd been pulled into without auditioning. Luca drove in silence, jaw tight, hands steady on the wheel. Ava broke first. "You can't do that," she said, voice sharper than she felt. "You can't just decide I belong to you." He didn't look at her. "I didn't decide," he said. "I acknowledged. That's not better." The car slowed, then stopped in an underground garage beneath one of his buildings. The engine cut, and the quiet pressed in. Luca turned to face her fully, eyes dark and intent. "Someone put their hands on you," he said evenly. "That ends badly in my world." "Your world," Ava shot back. "Not mine." He studied her for a long moment. "You stepped into it the night I stopped for you," he said. "Whether you meant or not." Anger flared, fueled by fear and something dangerously close to longing. "Then take me out of it," she demanded. "Stop following me. Stop protecting me. Stop deciding things for me." Luca exhaled slowly, as if restraining something volatile. "I can't," he said. "Because now that you're seen, removing protection would put you in more danger than staying." Ava's resolve wavered. "So I'm trapped?" "No," he replied. "You're guarded." He opened his door and stepped out, gesturing for her to follow. Against her better judgment, she did. He led her through private halls into a penthouse office overlooking the city, glass walls stretching toward the sky. "This is what you're standing next to," he said quietly. "Power draws enemies. Enemies test boundaries. You became a boundary the moment someone thought touching you was a message to me." Ava crossed her arms, trying to steady herself. "I didn't ask for this." "Neither did I," he said, and for the first time, there was something like regret in his voice. "But here we are." She met his gaze. "Then tell me the truth," she said. "All of it." Luca hesitated, then nodded once. "My world is built on loyalty and fear," he began. "I keep the city balanced. I stop worse men from taking what they want by force. That doesn't make me good, but it makes me necessary." He stepped closer. "And you," he continued, "are the first thing in a long time that isn't strategic." Her chest tightened. "Then let me go," she whispered. He lifted a hand, stopping inches from her face, not touching. "I won't cage you," he said. "But I won't abandon you either." The honesty disarmed her more than any threat could. Over the next days, boundaries were drawn, and tested. Luca kept his distance physically, but his presence never truly left. He assigned one discreet driver instead of a rotating team. He stopped showing up unannounced. He asked before taking her time. Ava tried to convince herself this made things manageable, that control could be negotiated. But the city didn't care about negotiations. Rumors spread. Whispers sharpened. A rival syndicate, sensing weakness, began pushing lines. One afternoon, the gallery's windows were shattered by a brick wrapped in a note, "Stay in your lane." Ava's hands shook as she read it. Luca arrived minutes later, fury barely contained beneath his calm exterior. "This is escalating," he said. "Which means you're coming with me." "Where?" "Somewhere safe." "I'm not running," she said firmly. "This is my life." He looked at her, something like pride flickering through his anger. "Then we adapt," he said. That night, he taught her the rules. Never vary routines alone, always check exits, trust instincts over politeness. It was surreal, absorbing survival lessons from the man who made them necessary. As danger crept closer, so did something else. Quiet moments between instructions, shared meals eaten in silence, conversations that slipped from guarded to personal when neither was watching the clock. One evening, as rain returned to the city like a memory repeating itself, Ava found herself standing too close to him on the balcony. "You don't look like the monster they describe," she said softly. Luca's gaze didn't leave the skyline. "Monsters don't look like monsters," he replied. "That's how they survive." She turned toward him. "And what about you?" He finally looked at her, eyes searching. "I survive," he said. The air between them tightened, heavy with everything unsaid. For a heartbeat, the world narrowed again, just like that first night. Then Luca stepped back, jaw set. "This is the line," he said quietly. "If I cross it, I don't know how to stop." Ava's heart pounded. "Maybe some lines are meant to be crossed," she whispered. He shook his head once. "Not this one." But even as he said it, they both knew the truth. The line wasn't holding. It was waiting. The line Luca refused to cross began to haunt Ava more than the danger itself, because every day proved how fragile restraint was in a world that thrived on pressure and blood. The brick through the gallery window had been a warning, but it wasn't the last. Subtle threats followed. Anonymous calls that hung up when she answered, cars idling too long outside her building, familiar routes suddenly feeling hostile. Luca tightened security without asking, doubling men she never saw but always felt, and while part of her resented the loss of anonymity, another part clung to the safety his presence created. One evening, he took her to a private estate outside the city under the excuse of a meeting she couldn't attend but shouldn't be alone during. The drive was quiet, the tension thick. "This isn't protection anymore," Ava said finally. "This is preparation." Luca didn't deny it. "Rivals are testing me," he replied. "They think you're leverage." Her stomach dropped. "Am I?" He glanced at her, expression unyielding. "No," he said. "You're a line they shouldn't touch." The estate was guarded, beautiful, isolated, a temporary fortress. As the night stretched on, Luca's phone buzzed constantly, his attention fractured by reports he tried to keep from her. Ava watched him pace, the weight of command etched into every movement, and realized how much of himself he carried alone. "You don't have to pretend I don't understand," she said softly. He stopped. "Understanding gets people hurt," he replied. "I won't let that be you." That was when the call came that changed everything. A rival crew had made a move, not at the gallery or her apartment, but at a charity event she had attended weeks earlier. Photos leaked, her name circulated with implications meant to provoke Luca into a mistake. "They want me reckless," he said coldly after hanging up. "They want me to break." Ava stepped closer. "Then don't," she said. "Don't make me the reason you burn the city down." He looked at her then, really looked at her, and something in his gaze cracked. "You already are," he admitted quietly. "That's the problem." Hours later, the estate's calm shattered. Alarms cut through the night, lights flaring on as Luca's men moved with disciplined urgency. A breach at the perimeter, small, intentional, designed to test response time. Luca gave orders with lethal clarity, his voice steady even as the air filled with tension. Ava stayed where she was told, heart hammering, listening to the distant echo of chaos. Minutes stretched into an eternity before the all clear came. No one got through, but the message was clear, the city was pushing back. Luca returned to her, removing his jacket, the faintest trace of blood on his cuff, not his. "This ends," he said. "One way or another." Ava's voice shook. "What does that mean?" He hesitated, the general considering the cost of victory. "It means I remove the threat permanently," he said. "And that puts you closer to the blast." She reached for him without thinking, fingers brushing his wrist, grounding him. "Then choose a way that doesn't turn me into a weapon," she said. The touch ignited something dangerous. Luca stilled, breath controlled, eyes dark. "If I let myself feel this," he warned, "I won't be able to separate you from the war." Ava didn't pull away. "Maybe separation was never real," she whispered. The admission broke the last fragile balance. Luca stepped back, creating distance with effort that cost him. "We'll end this clean," he said. "I'll dismantle them quietly. No spectacle. No message that points back to you." Dawn brought grim efficiency. By afternoon, rumors rippled through the underworld. Alliances shifted, accounts froze, leaders disappeared into silence. Luca moved like a storm with purpose, invisible yet devastating. Ava watched from the edge, protected but not untouched, understanding now that safety in his world wasn't absence of danger, it was control of it. When he returned that night, exhaustion etched into his face, he poured 2 glasses and handed her one. "It's done," he said. Relief washed through her, followed by an unexpected ache. "At what cost?" He met her gaze. "Mine," he said simply. The city exhaled in the days that followed, but something fundamental had changed. Luca's enemies were fewer, quieter, more cautious. Ava's name faded from whispers. Yet the space between them, once carefully measured, felt charged and unstable. On a rainy evening that echoed their beginning, they stood again on a balcony overlooking the city. You saved me, Ava said. No, Luca replied. I protected what mattered. She turned toward him, rain misting the air. And what matters now? He didn't answer with words. He stepped closer, stopping just short of touch, giving her the choice he'd promised from the start. Ava closed the distance. The kiss was restrained and devastating, a collision of restraint and inevitability, brief but final in its promise. Luca pulled back first, forehead resting against hers. This changes everything, he said. Ava nodded. It already did. In the quiet after the storm, they both knew the truth. The city had struck back and failed, but the greater battle, the one between power and vulnerability, control and love, had only just begun. The calm that followed Luca's calculated retaliation was deceptive. The city seemed quieter, but Ava felt the tension in the air, like electricity humming just beneath the surface, waiting for the smallest spark to ignite chaos again. Every time she stepped outside, she sensed the subtle changes. Glances that lingered too long, whispers that stopped abruptly when she approached, doors that closed slightly too quickly. Luca's world had wrapped around her life so completely that she could no longer remember where she ended and the danger began. It wasn't fear that gnawed at her. It was awareness, an acute consciousness that every step, every word, and every choice had consequences far beyond anything she had ever imagined. Despite her attempts to maintain normalcy, she found herself increasingly drawn into Luca's world. He never forced her, never demanded, yet his presence was a gravitational pull she could not resist. The first time she realized how deeply she was entwined in his life, she had been invited to a private meeting, not as a bystander, but as someone whose opinion mattered. Luca sat behind a polished oak desk in his office, reviewing city maps, reports, and intelligence. I want your perspective, he said simply. Ava blinked, confused. Mine. Yes, he replied. You see patterns differently than I do. You notice what I overlook. You notice the human element. She hesitated, her heart racing. I'm not trained for this. No one is, he said. You're not trained, and yet you notice when someone is vulnerable, when someone is hiding. That's why you matter. For the first time, Ava understood that Luca's interest in her wasn't solely protective or possessive. It was strategic, yet it was layered with something more personal, something that terrified her and excited her in equal measure. Over the following weeks, she began to see the city through his eyes. The way the lights revealed patterns, how people moved like pieces on a board, how alliances shifted in subtle glances and casual words. Luca guided her carefully, never forcing her hand, but gradually teaching her to read the underworld as he did. They spent hours in his office, mapping threats, evaluating risks, and sometimes simply sitting in silence, the weight of unspoken words pressing down between them. One night, after a long day of planning and watching, Ava finally asked the question she had avoided. Why me? Why care so much? Luca looked at her, eyes reflecting a storm she had never seen before. Because you are not like them, he said quietly. You are not a tool, not a pawn. You are something real. The admission left her breathless. Something real, she repeated. He nodded. Yes. And real things are worth protecting, even in a world where most people are disposable. That night, their conversation shifted from strategy to vulnerability, a line Luca rarely crossed. He told her pieces of his past, moments of betrayal, loss, and the formative events that had shaped him into the man who now controlled an entire city from the shadows. Ava listened, heart tightening, realizing that the man she had first met in the rain was a puzzle of contradictions, ruthless yet loyal, commanding yet cautious, dangerous yet capable of tenderness. Their bond deepened not through grand gestures but through the small, quiet exchanges that carried weight. A hand lightly touching hers across a table, a shared look when a threat was spotted, a voice softening when no one else was around. Every moment was a tether, invisible but unbreakable. One evening, as the rain returned in a familiar pattern, Ava found herself in Luca's private study. Papers and reports were scattered, candles flickered, and outside, the city hummed under the storm. Luca approached, careful yet purposeful. I need to show you something, he said. He led her to a wall lined with photographs, documents, and maps, each meticulously annotated. These are the people I track, he explained. The ones who have power. The ones who seek it. The ones who could hurt you. Ava felt a chill run down her spine. It's overwhelming. It is, he admitted. But knowledge is power. Awareness keeps us alive. She studied the images, her mind racing to process the enormity of what she had stepped into. Then she realized. Luca was not just showing her threats, he was teaching her trust. He was showing her that survival wasn't about isolation, it was about connection, about understanding who could be relied upon and who could not. The rain outside intensified, tapping against the window like the drumbeat of a city that never slept. Luca stepped closer, close enough that the warmth radiating from him brushed against her arm. "You're not just safe," he said, voice low. "You're integral. You matter. And I won't allow anyone to take that from you." Ava's pulse quickened. "But, what if I fail?" "You won't," he said firmly. "I will not allow it. And if necessary, I will carry you through." That night, as the storm raged on, Ava understood the true nature of her entanglement with Luca Moretti. It was not just protection, not just obsession, it was a partnership forged in necessity, danger, and a growing understanding that sometimes, the people you trust most are the ones who scare you the most. Days passed, each bringing new challenges, each testing the boundaries of trust and loyalty. Rival factions attempted minor disruptions, testing Luca's defenses and her ability to remain composed under pressure. Ava rose to each challenge, guided by Luca's training, her intuition, and an unexpected courage that surprised even her. She discovered strengths she hadn't known existed, and with each small victory, her confidence grew. Yet, in quiet moments alone with Luca, she also discovered the vulnerability beneath his formidable exterior. There were times he would sit silently, watching the city with a weight she could almost touch, and she realized the life he led, while powerful, was also lonely. She wanted to reach for him, to bridge the space between them, but she knew that in his world, such closeness came with risk. Still, despite the danger, the connection between them deepened. Words became less necessary. Glances carried meaning. Every shared silence held intensity, and the storm outside mirrored the storm within them both. One night, after a particularly tense encounter with a rival crew, Luca finally let his guard slip. Sitting beside her on the balcony of his penthouse, the city spread beneath them like a living organism. "Do you understand now?" he asked quietly. "The price of this life?" Ava nodded. "Yes. But I also understand why I stay." He looked at her, eyes piercing, searching for the truth in her words. "Because you want to," he said, not accusing, simply observing. "And because I let you," she replied, her voice steady. Luca exhaled slowly, the tension in his shoulders easing slightly. "Then we proceed," he said. Together. As the rain continued to fall, Ava realized that she was no longer just a witness to Luca's world, she was a part of it, bound by secrets, trust, and a connection that neither power nor danger could sever. In the quiet aftermath of the storm, both knew that the city would continue to test them, that danger would return in forms both subtle and violent, but for the first time, Ava felt ready. Not just to survive, but to stand beside the man who had claimed her, protect her, and, in ways she was only beginning to understand, love her. The city had grown quieter, but Ava could feel the tension like a pulse beneath the calm. Every day carried a whisper of danger, a hint that the balance Luca had fought so hard to create could tip with the slightest misstep. She had adapted to his world, learned its rhythms, its rules, its dangerous beauty, but tonight, the line between control and chaos blurred again. It started with a message on her phone, simple and anonymous: "He's watching you." Alone. Her heart skipped, and she immediately knew it wasn't an idle threat. Luca's presence was always near, a shadow that protected and claimed her, yet she felt the cold brush of uncertainty, the invisible edge of another predator. She called him, voice tight with urgency. "Luca, someone knows. Stay calm," he said, his tone deceptively even. "I'm on my way. Don't leave the apartment." Minutes later, his car arrived, cutting through the night with silent precision. He entered without knocking, unannounced yet expected, and Ava felt the familiar surge of something she couldn't name: fear, relief, attraction, all tangled into one. He scanned the room, eyes sharp, body taut with anticipation. "Show me the message," he said. Her fingers shook as she handed him the phone. He read it, jaw tightening imperceptibly. "They're testing the perimeter," he said. "Trying to see how far they can push you." "What do we do?" she asked, instinctively knowing the answer yet dreading it. "We remove them," he replied. That was all. No hesitation, no question. He moved like a shadow through the city, orchestrating a response so precise and lethal that Ava had to remind herself she was safe because of him, not with him. Hours later, he returned, exhaustion barely hidden beneath his control. She watched him, realizing just how much he carried alone, the weight of the city, of lives, of enemies, and of her. You can't do this forever, she whispered. He met her gaze, and in his eyes, she saw the truth she'd been trying to ignore. I can, he said quietly. But I shouldn't have to. That's why I need you to make a choice. A choice? She asked, confused. Yes, he said. You can stay in the line of fire, live under my protection, part of my world, fully aware of the danger. Or, you can leave. Walk away. Forget me. Return to a life that's safe but ordinary. Her breath caught. Leave. The thought felt impossible. The life she had known, simple and predictable, now seemed distant and hollow. Yet staying meant living in constant tension, in the shadow of danger, bound to a man whose presence consumed her in ways she didn't fully understand. And if I stay? She asked, voice trembling. Luca stepped closer, inches from her face, the faint warmth of him brushing her skin. Then we accept that you are mine, he said. Not as possession, but as someone I am bound to protect, someone I choose every day. Ava's heart raced, pounding in a rhythm that matched the storm outside. She remembered the first night, the rain, the broken car, the moment he pulled over. She remembered every calculated movement, every quiet protection, every intense glance that had slowly drawn her into his world. She realized then that staying wasn't just about safety or danger, it was about choice, and about connection, about a bond that had formed through fear, trust, and inevitability. Tears blurred her vision as she made her decision. I stay, she whispered. With you. His lips brushed hers briefly, a promise, a warning, and a vow all at once. Then we move forward, he said. Together. The next days were a blur of preparation and adaptation. Ava embraced the life she had once feared, the constant awareness, the subtle threats, the meticulous planning. Yet she also embraced the moments of intimacy, the quiet exchanges, the rare laughter that broke through the tension. Luca taught her not just how to survive, but how to navigate the dangerous currents of his world with intelligence, intuition, and courage. Each day she learned more about him, the man beneath the legend, beneath the ruthlessness. She discovered a depth of loyalty, a capacity for care, a darkness tempered by the rare glimpses of tenderness he allowed. One evening, as rain returned to the city, Ava and Luca stood together on the balcony of his penthouse, the skyline stretching endlessly before them. Do you ever regret it? She asked softly. What? He replied. Letting me into your world. He looked at her, expression unreadable. Then, almost imperceptibly, he nodded. Sometimes, he admitted. But not in ways that matter. You've changed me. You've reminded me there's more than control, more than power. You've reminded me that some things are worth risking everything for. Ava felt her chest tighten at the confession, understanding the weight of those words. And you've changed me too, she said. From someone terrified and ordinary to someone alive, someone who sees the world differently. Luca's hand found hers, fingers entwining naturally, as if they had always belonged together. Then we face it, he said. The city, the threats, the danger, all of it. Together. No turning back. The rain intensified, striking the glass and the balcony like a drumbeat, echoing the rhythm of their hearts. Ava rested her head against his shoulder, feeling the steady strength of him, the unyielding presence that had become her anchor. She understood now that choice was not simply a decision, it was a commitment, a promise, and a surrender. And she was ready. Because the man who had claimed her that rainy night, the Mafia boss who ruled with shadow and precision, was now irrevocably a part of her life, and she a part of his. Danger would come. The city would test them. Rivals would push lines, threats would grow sharper, and the storm would return. But Ava no longer feared it alone. She had chosen to step into Luca's world fully, to embrace the chaos, the love, and the power that came with it. And for the first time in her life, she understood that some bonds are forged not by circumstance, but by choice, by the willingness to face danger, trust implicitly, and surrender to a connection that defies reason. The night stretched on, the city lights shimmering through the rain-soaked streets, and on that balcony, with the storm around them and the world waiting below, Ava and Luca stood together, bound by trust, danger, and a decision that would change everything.